Hey guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, the Bright Side Girl, and today we're going to finally do my mermaid recommendations video. As if you're not familiar already, I am hosting my very first read-a-thon called Mermaid Marathon. I'll link it up here in the cards if you want to see the announcement video with all the challenges, and there's going to be a giveaway and all that kind of fun stuff. Today I'm going to be recommending some of my very favorite mermaid books. If you are interested in reading them, you do not have to read only mermaid books to participate in the read-a-thon. I would like you to read at least one book that features a mermaid or has a mermaid mentioned in it. So in addition to mermaid heavy books, I'm also going to be having recommendations for books that just mention mermaids lightly. So if you're like, God, I really don't want to read a mermaid book, don't worry, I got you covered, and we're actually going to start right there. So first off, we're going to talk about books that just loosely mention mermaids. So if you want to participate in the read-a-thon and you're like, I just don't know if I like mermaid books, I don't really want to read them, that's okay. You can try one of these out and it will totally count for the read-a-thon, and I'll just let it slide, and my heart won't be broken that you didn't read a mermaid book. Okay, so for books that loosely mention mermaids, Peter Pan is a great one, and pretty much any Peter Pan retelling. So I have Alias Hook, Peter and the Starcatchers, and pretty much any other retelling is going to loosely mention mermaids because there are mermaids featured in Peter Pan. This is a classic. This is a good one for a read-a-thon. I actually read this one for Booktubeathon last year. It's only 170 pages. Really easy to get through, so whimsical and magical, and slightly different than the Peter Pan we're used to from Disney, so this is a great one. Alias Hook is an adult book on the backstory of Hook, and it's about his life, but it's got a lot of fairy magic in here, a little tiny bit of mermaids, lots of Peter Pan, lots of detail into how Peter Pan and Captain Hook came to be, and just his whole backstory, and I really enjoyed it. This one does take a little bit longer to get through. It is a little bit richer in the words and the writing because it's an adult book. Has a little bit of sexual content, so just keep that in mind if you're of a younger age, but I really like this one, and also this cover is great. Then we have Peter and the Starcatchers, which I've been raving about for quite some time. This is actually a middle grade series. It reminds me of Peter Pan in Harry Potter form. It's a 5-book series, and I'm in the middle of the 4th book right now, but the first 3 especially are absolutely exceptional. This is about Peter and the Starcatchers, and it's all about Peter Pan and how he became to be Peter Pan and how Neverland came about and the Lost Boys and all of that stuff, and it's so magical and adventurous and so much fun. It's one of my all-time favorite book series and one of my all-time favorite books as well. And of course, there's mermaids mentioned. Another one where mermaids aren't the main subject is The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. You guys haven't heard me rave about this yet, but you will in my June book wrap-up. It's one of the few books that I read in June. If you're not familiar, this is all folklore set in the Grisha world, like Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows. So if you guys haven't picked this one up yet, it is the perfect book for Mermaid Marathon because there's 7 short stories in here. The art is absolutely beautiful. And we have at the very end, there is a mermaid story called When Water Sang Fire. And it's just a mermaid fairy tale, and it is absolutely excellent. This is my favorite Leigh Bardugo book to date, and even if you haven't read the Grisha world, I think you'll still really enjoy these tales. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't spoil anything because they're just all fairy tales set in that world. I think you'll enjoy it more if you've read the Grishaverse, but these were just so excellently well written, and I will even count it if you just read the mermaid book. You can count that as a book for Mermaid Marathon, but this is a great one if you're not wanting to go super mermaid heavy. So another great one if you're not wanting to be super mermaid heavy is Daughter of the Pirate King and Daughter of the Siren Queen. This duology, specifically the first book, is very loose on mermaids. It has a very loose mention and talking around it. The second one is a little bit more heavy, but not that heavy. It's more pirate based, nautical based. It's about our lead character, Aloza, who is a pirate king's daughter, and she's on a mission, and she is just the most badass pirate girl ever. Again, one of my favorite books. I can't wait to try these on audiobook because I've heard the narrator is really good, but it has pirates and adventure and just really great romance, and it's so fun and really easy to get through, so it would be great for this marathon as well. Another great one, if you just want loosely mentioned mermaids, is The Water Mirror by Kai Meyer. This is also a trilogy. I've only read the first book so far. This one also might be middle grade. I'm not entirely sure, but you can see this like mermaid girl on the back. So this is set in the city that's modeled after Venice, or is Venice, and it's about two orphan girls who go to work for two different kind of magical people across the way in Venice. One is a mirror maker, one is a painter. I can't remember exactly, but they either get split up or they stay together and they go and work for these guys. But in this city, like, there are these magical stone lions that come to life and the policemen ride them around, and then they use mermaids kind of like we would like horses, and they like use the mermaids and they like ride them through the canals of Venice, and it's like really terrible. So the mermaids is just a loosely mentioned part in here. The water river is kind of magical. The girls have discovered all these magical things. I don't even know how to explain it because it's so weird, but it's really creepy and really, really excellent. The last one I want to talk about, if you guys don't want to read full-on mermaid books, is In Other Lands by Sarah Reese Brennan. This is such a special book. This is a very long book. I think it's well over 400 pages. It was like a 16-hour audiobook. I listened to this one last year during my own personal mermaid marathon because I read a lot of mermaid books during June and July. And this is about a young boy named Elliot, and he discovers magic and he gets sucked into this magical world. Very different from other books that are like that because Elliot is kind of unlikable and he's kind of a brat and he doesn't make friends easily, but in this world they kind of think he's cool and they kind of like him, and it's very unusual for him, and he gets these two best friends, and it's just so great because he learns all these magical things about fairies and elves and goblins, and he's obsessed with finding mermaids, and he grows up throughout the book, and it is just one of the most underrated books ever. It is a little bit long-winded because you're following Elliot from like 12 to 18, but I just thought it was great. The audiobook was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it and I highly recommend it. Okay, so now we're gonna step into the mermaid books that I have read that are not necessarily my favorite, but I just want to mention them so you guys have lots and lots of options. First off, we have Between the Sea and Sky by Jacqueline Delamore. I read this one last month and I really enjoyed it. This one is a great one for Mermaid Marathon because it's only 220 pages and it's very, very easy to get through. This has got a little bit of a historical vibe to it. There are two sister mermaids in here. Basically, they have belts, and if a man steals your belt, like, you become a human, and you can also choose to give him your belt and like give up your mermaid life. And one of the sisters goes missing, and so the other one chooses to go on land to go and find her, and she has a friend that was like a fairy boy, and it just has a lot of magical elements in here, and it's very romantic and very classic, like historical mermaidy. It's definitely YA still. I really enjoyed this one. It's not my all-time favorite, but I still really enjoyed it, and because of the length, it's great for Mermaid Marathon. Next up is the Of Poseidon trilogy. So there's Of Poseidon, Of Triton, and Of Neptune. I think in that order. Again, another mermaid trilogy. It's really popular to do mermaids in trilogies. I need to reread this one before I fully recommend it because I enjoyed it, but I don't remember a ton about it. I know our lead character has some kind of draw to the water, and there's like a lot of romance in here, and you learn a lot about like an underwater mermaid kingdom and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit more dramatic and intense than the other books that I remember, but I don't remember a ton about it, so that's why it's kind of in this middle ground. But I think a lot of people would really like this, especially if you love mermaid books, then you'll love it. Next up is Siren by Kira Cass. This one I have a love-hate relationship with. I actually have a full book talk on this one. If you've read the book and you want to hear the book talk, it does have spoilers in it, but you can click the little eye and it will take you to the book talk. This one is like right in the middle of the road for me because I absolutely love the love story. I love the plot and the writing, but the ocean is a character in this one and talks. And so basically this is about girls that have been turned into mermaids, and their job is to sink ships to feed the ocean and to like take care of the ocean. And the ocean is like a mother figure, and she like talks to them and tells them what to do and helps them out. And it's very weird, and I can't quite get on board, and the audiobook didn't help either, but I still think it's worth reading because I love the love story and I love Kira Cass's writing style, and I love the sisterliness of the book. So if you can just like somehow delete that ocean part, then you're all good. Next, again, this is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo, and I really went to reread it because I'm thinking that I liked it more because of how beautiful it is and because I like mermaids than how I actually enjoyed it, because this is one of the only mermaid books I had an actual hard time getting through, and there was just something about it that just didn't live up to the hype for me. And lately I've actually been seeing on Instagram more and more people posting pictures of this book and saying, couldn't get through it, DNF'd it. I don't know why it's happening all of a sudden because it's been out for like 2 years, but The more I see that, the more I'm like, yeah, I know, it's just one of my least favorite mermaid books. This is a straight up Little Mermaid retelling, and it's about a siren princess that kills princes for their hearts, and she like uses them for magic, I can't remember. And then the prince tries to hunt the siren, and basically it's, you know, it's that. And it sounds great, and it was advertised as like a brutal, dark mermaid tale, and for me, having read a lot of mermaid books, it's not that dark and it wasn't that brutal. I mean, it might be good, you might like it, kind of fast to get through and kind of not. I don't know where to put this one because I wanted to mention it because it's such a popular book and it's on a lot of people's lists, so I would say it's worth giving a shot. I'm just not entirely sure if I like loved it. Next up is one that I actually love. This is Atlantia by Ali Condi. This one I technically shouldn't put on here, and I say this in every video where I mention it. It's technically a siren book, not a mermaid book, so there's no actual mermaids with fins. But if you were wanting to read a book, I guess this should have been in the other category. Because if you're wanting to read a book that's not mermaid heavy, this is set in an underwater world that we have created. It's kind of got a dystopian vibe in a way, or utopian vibe. So we've created this underwater world called Atlantia, and there are some people that stayed up above in order to like keep the underwater world going and safe, and so we've created this like cool underwater universe, and there's just families living under there, and our lead character Rue has always wanted to go to the above, even though they said that everything's bad up there and run down and not doing well. She still wants to go to the above, and you kind of get a choice at a certain age, and then lots of adventure happens, and it's just so good. It's one of my all-time favorite books. I loved it. The audiobook's narrated by Rebecca Soler, who's one of my all-time favorite audiobook narrators, and this one I feel like is pretty easy to get through. It's only 290 pages. I loved it. I just loved it. The world building was great, but it's technically sirens, not mermaids, but I always throw it in these videos anyway. Then next up is The Tale of Emily Winsnap. This is like an 8-book middle grade series that I absolutely loved. It's definitely not for everyone. It's definitely written like a middle grade series. That doesn't bother me. I can enjoy books at like any stage, but I particularly liked the audiobook. I can't remember who narrates it, but I just loved it so much, and it's very short. These are very easy to get through, so if you don't mind middle grade and you just love mermaids in general, like it's so cute and so precious. If you want something for your daughter that's younger, oh, it's so great. I really enjoyed this book and the second book, and I'm gonna read the third book during the actual read-a-thon this time around. Next up is the Waterfire Quartet. So you have Deep Blue, Rogue Wave, Dark Tide, and Sea Spell. So this I believe is young adult, but it kind of reads again more like a middle grade. This is very different from the other books I mentioned because this is about actual mermaids, not girls that turn into mermaids or mermaids that turn into girls. This is about mermaids in their underwater kingdom, and there is magic, and there are ghosts, and there are witches, and there is like demons and creatures and like all kinds of crazy things that happen. This is a very in-depth world. It reminds me kind of like a Disney movie, which is by Disney Hyperion and Jennifer Donnelly. It definitely has like great side characters and pets and things like that, and it's got a lot of fun about it, but it's very dramatic. They have really cool maps, and there's a lot to learn. They have like their own language and their own words, so much so that there is like a glossary in the back for what all the different words and things mean, which, but the first book was a little bit intense for me because they had such a different language. I was like, ooh, I don't know if this is like too much, but the more I read, the more I enjoyed and really, really liked it. So I do want to reread these sometime soon because I really enjoyed the series as a whole, and there's romance in here too. Then we have Siren by Trisha Rayborn. So now we're getting to the books that I like more and more and more. So this is the first book in a trilogy. This is, I believe, out of print. I think you can still find this first book in a lot of libraries, and I know that you can find the ebooks from a lot of libraries as well. So I apologize if you have a hard time finding it, but I think it's worth a read if you like mermaid books. So this is set in a like seaside village where our lead character goes there for like the summer, and she finds out all this like mysterious stuff that keeps happening, and she does like an investigation after her sister dies, and she's trying to figure out what's going on with this town and why her sister died, because everyone thinks she killed herself and she doesn't believe that. This one just, I don't know, there was just something about it that I really loved. It had a more of a witchy vibe about it as well. I liked the love story. They talk a lot about the food at the cafe that she goes to. I really liked the ending so much that I'm really excited to get into the next 2 books in the series. I have the first one, I need to find the third one, but I really enjoyed it and I think it's worth a read. Next up, we're going to talk about Undertow by Michael Buckley. This is again is a trilogy. So this one is super, super fun, action-packed, and unique. This is set in, I think, San Francisco, where there's been kind of like an apocalypse, sort of, and these underwater sea creatures that are mermaid-esque, but they're kind of like, I don't know, they're kind of more like Aquaman. They have like different species of like sea, ocean creatures that are human, basically, and they come out all of a sudden and kind of take over San Francisco, and they're not like violent, but they become a part of the city and it becomes like a huge thing, and so they have to start letting them come to school and do all these things and incorporate them into the system. So that is basically what this book is set about. Our lead character Lyric and her dad is a police officer. She is being pushed into becoming friends with a particular guy from the sea world, and it's just a whole thing, and it's very unique and very, very fast-paced, action-packed, super duper fun. Not anything like these other mermaid books at all. It's more like sea creatures and just apocalypse and survival, and it's so good and unique, and it's just a blast. It was just so much fun to read, so this would be great for the marathon because you can just fly through these books. Next we have Forgive My Fins. Fins Are Forever and Just for Fins. It might not be in that order, but these are really great despite the hideous covers. Again, kind of read more like a middle grade even though they're young adult. The lead character I think is 15 or 16. She is a mermaid that doesn't want to be a mermaid, and she comes on land and she lives with her aunt, and she's a mermaid princess and she just wants nothing to do with it, and then she kind of gets forced to having to deal with it, and things happen, and there's a super cute romance in here, and you get to learn a lot about this underwater world and the mermaid kingdom, but it's also like about high school, and it's just really, really fun and goofy, and like she says ridiculous things. I just thought this book was so funny because she's just like, son of a swordfish, and just like stuff like that. They have all this funny stuff that she says, but it's very goofy and very silly and just super fun and enjoyable. So if you want something like that and something, again, really fast to go through, this is a great trilogy. Hey guys, Macy from the future here, popping in really quick because I forgot to mention one of my most favorite mermaid books ever. That is Mermaid by Carolyn Turgeon. This is a straight up Little Mermaid retelling. It is almost identical to the fairy tale, just with a lot of extra stuff added in. If you're familiar with the fairy tale and you like it, you will love this. Somewhat romantic, has a lot of like sisterly bonds, very whimsical and fantastical, and it also is a bit surprising. It seems like it's very heavily focused on the romance, but in the end, that's not really what the story is about. So the romance in this, the guy is kind of a jerk, so just kind of keep that in mind. He's like your classic fairy tale prince, but that's kind of the intention of the story, and I just thought this was absolutely beautifully written. I do believe that this is an adult retelling, so it has some sexual content to it, so just be aware of that if you're of a younger age. But I absolutely loved this one. The audiobook was phenomenal, and it's really short, so it'd be absolutely great for Mermaid Marathon. It totally captured my heart, and I'm completely in love with Carolyn Turgeon now. Okay, back to your regularly scheduled program. Okay, just a couple more left. Next I want to talk about Sea Witch by Sarah Henning, specifically because this came out last year. We're getting the sequel this year in August, and I'm so excited because I didn't know we were getting a sequel, and I have no idea what it's going to be about because this one ended pretty good. So this is a Little Mermaid retelling, but it is like the back story of Ursula. Oh, so good. This one is not super mermaid heavy despite what it's about. It's mostly about two girls that are on land that are friends, and I think two princes. I think they're princes, and there's like four of them, and their friendships and like getting to know each other, and drama and witchy magic and things that happen. So this is just more like a historical fiction, and it has witchy drama and has a little bit of mermaid stuff in there, but not as much as you would think based on what it's about. There's, you know, like piratey stuff and fun things, but it's a little bit more slow paced, but I really enjoyed it. I thought the audiobook narrator was absolutely excellent. I listened to this one, I think, for Book2-a-thon last year. Can't wait to reread it / listen to it this fall, closer to the end of summer when the next book's coming out. I think sometime around August, but I really, really, really loved it. This was so much better than To Kill a Kingdom, in my opinion, and way more underrated, but it was excellent. Then I want to talk about Into the Drowning Deep. This one also came out a couple of years ago. This is by Mira Grant, aka Shauna McGuire. This is an adult mermaid book, but it's more science fiction, contemporary. So this is about a company named Imagine Inc. and they create these mockumentaries based on different myths like the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot, and so they set out to do one on mermaids, and they go to the Challenger Deep, which is supposed to be the deepest part of the ocean, to film this video, and the crew never comes back. They somehow find the ship and get a video of this horrifying footage that leads everyone to believe that mermaids might be real. So then the company gets together, gets a bunch of people in different areas of the world. They get like the best hunters and people that have studied mermaids and scientists and things in specialized areas, and they get them to go on a ship and figure out what happened. So it has a kind of like the abyss vibe about it, kind of like an alien creature type thing. These types of mermaids are monsters. They are not really human-like. They're more like creatures, and they're like scientific, and so they're more just like animals that look like us, and they're super fast and super freaking scary. This today is the scariest book I've ever read. If you want to watch me being terrified of this book the entire time I read it, click my Spookathon vlog. It'll be up here in the eye again. You can click on that and watch that video, because it's basically just me being scared of Into the Drowning Deep for the first 4 days, but loving it at the same time. I'm a big wuss. It's not really that scary, but I was just scary because it's very, very intense. This, because it's an adult book, is much slower paced and it's going to take you longer to get through. That being said, I got through it in like 3.5 days, and it's over 400 pages. It's an adult book. It's huge, and it's very wordy, it's very scientific, it's very specific, and I still got through it really fast because it was so intense. If you don't care about mermaids at all, I think you'll still really like this book. It's finally getting some more hype. The more people that read it are really liking it, and I'm seeing that people that like all different kinds of books are liking it because it's just so unique, and they actually make you think about how mermaids could actually be real based on this type of a thing. It's so good. It's supposed to have a sequel, so if you're disappointed by the ending, I think that's why, because she is planning on writing a sequel, but it takes her a lot of time because she does a lot of research. This also has a lot of representation, so there are some deaf characters in here, and just a lot of things are happening, and it's so good. I'll be talking about that one a lot more in the fall because I like to read spooky books around the fall. But if you're in the mood for a spooky read, this is a good one. And despite its size, it goes really fast. And I plan on listening to the audiobook this fall as well. We're rounding out. So this is Monstrous Beauty by Elizabeth Fama. Again, I have a book talk on it. I'll link it up here in the cards. This one, again, is kind of a spookier mermaid read. I did not like this book the first time I read it because I wasn't anticipating it being scary. Loved it the second time I read it and thought it was awesome. So this one is about our lead character, Hester, and she lives on this, I think it's an island or it's somewhere by the seashore, and we're basically going back and forth between something that has happened way in the past before she was ever born, and then into Hester's life now, and she's discovering all these kind of magical things that are happening, and she wants to learn more, and so you're kind of following her and then jumping back into the past. It's fairly mermaid heavy, but not overly mermaid heavy. Has some like creepy kind of scary things that happen in here. Some trigger warnings for rape and sexual abuse in here, and there's also like some scary stuff that happens. It's not, again, it's young adult, so it's not like crazily scary or overly dramatized or anything like that, but I really enjoyed it. I think this is absolutely brilliant. The way everything ties together is just so good. Audiobook was absolutely excellent as well. I reread this one last year and just completely fell in love with it despite its super creepy and disturbing nature. So this is a good one for the marathon as well because it's a standalone. And lastly, my very favorite mermaid series and a book to date, the Lost Voices series by Sarah Porter. The other books are in the other room, so I'm not going to hold them up. But this is a trilogy. Once again, it's my very favorite mermaid series, and I think mermaid book in overall. This one is very unique how the humans turn into mermaids, and it's disturbing but very unique and very interesting. It does have some more like teenagery drama, but I still thought it was really enjoyable. You spend the majority of your time in the ocean, in the sea with the girls, and they're sinking ships and they're kind of evil, but they're humans, so it's kind of got that conundrum going on there. And then there's just a lot of things that happen in here, like involving around the environment and romance and sisterhood, and there's a lot of really great things about this book that makes it a little bit more unique than the other books that I've mentioned. I just loved it. I've read it like 3 or 4 times now. It's probably my most read series to date, to be honest. I could read it over and over again. I don't know what it is. Parts of it are set in San Francisco and on islands and different kinds of areas, and I just really enjoyed the series as a whole, and I don't know a lot of people who have read this. So this is another great one as well. Whew. Okay, you guys, I know this video is super long, but I wanted to give you as many mermaid options as possible, and this is nothing compared to the amount of mermaid books that I own. I'm filming a mermaid TBR video, or I might have already filmed it, coming up soon. If I've already filmed it, again, I'll link it up here in the cards. So I'm going to be listing every single mermaid book I own that I haven't read, and there's even more than what I mentioned here. So let me know if you guys like any of these. Let me know if you want to read them. Let me know if you're planning on reading them for Mermaid Marathon. Have I spiked your interest? Have I gotten you jazzed about mermaids yet? Are you going to leave my channel because I've only been posting mermaid videos? I hope not. So thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Macy. I'll see you guys next time on the bright side. Bye! Next up, we're going to talk... Are you done?